Reddit.
Editors, have you ever been in a community so toxic you had to leave? If so, which one?
I lived in a town where a company literally made the town toxic cancer clusters galore. What town? Minden, West Virginia. I think the YouTube community was really nice once it developed, I'd say around 2010. But with more population there comes more hate-driven people. It was nice for a while, everyone talks about the old YouTube days, everything was perfect, everyone was monetized, and everyone was friends, and by everyone I mean pretty much everyone. That sense of community, some creators literally knew your name, they were all friends with each other. VidCon was new, created by Hank Green, who everyone knew. It was all family. But of course, the platform expanded. I'm some great ways, and in some bad ways. The days of everyone being friends and that sense of family was gone. I still love YouTube, I think it is something ahead of its time, including all of its faults. I think it's going to live for a while longer. But that sense of love and community was crushed. And I don't think it will ever happen again. It's no longer a community. It's more of a popular media site, social media than anything. 2010 YouTube was peak YouTube. It wasn't toxic per se, but it was a negative part in my life. I used to have a friend group that never made me really happy. I never felt validated by them and became sad whenever I was around them. I loved being around people and friends, and just knowing that having to leave them and get some friends that liked me more was scary, and I just didn't want to have to leave a bunch of friends that I had spent 3 years with. I found some really good friends now. I haven't really talked to my old friends, but life is a lot better now where I really feel like I belong with them. Same. Mine was a stew of negativity. Nothing was ever our fault. We fetishized depression and anxiety. Used it as an excuse for doing nothing. Most of us were overweight or very unhealthy, but our mindset was its genetics, nothing we can do about it. We were lazy and self-righteous. My dad got hospitalized after having a heart attack. Doctors ordered him to diet and exercise. I started exercising with him. We both saw major improvements. I started getting shunned by the group and eventually straight up rejected. My life is so much more work now, haha, but it's so much better. I tried a sorority in college and lasted just shy of a year. Nothing that would make headlines, but the cliques within the sorority were very real, and the pressure to look, act, and buy all the things to match everyone else was too heavy. I did not fit in, and so I stopped trying to and found my people instead. Overwatch. I love the gameplay, I really do, but when people start yelling at me for not getting a team kill or not picking the characters that they want, it ruins the game for me. Then they pick a troll character and say stupid shit like, okay, well, if you're throwing the game, then I'm going to throw too. Like, how do they expect new people to learn when everyone is held to such a high standard? Such a shame. That game is a lot of fun. Pretty much why I refuse to play competitive and keep everyone muted at all times. I'm here to have fun, and I'd love to be able to talk to the people I'm playing with and strategize and have fun, but there are just so many people on there to ruin it. Now, if people are mad at me for how I'm playing, I don't ever have to hear it, at least. The Orthodox Muslim community I was born into. I went to a Catholic university in the USA. Occasionally we would get an email saying something like, "Unfortunately, Father Donahue has decided to return to Ireland. He will be missed from our intellect community." 2 weeks later you would read that 35 adults had come forward saying Father Donahue molested them as children. I'm sure the school knew ahead of time and told him to leave the country. This happened at least 3 times in 5 years. Military spouse support groups. They get mean for no reason at all. Then they find out where your spouse works and try to get them into trouble with their first shirt. And the rampant pyramid schemes. No matter what continent you're on or country you move to, pyramid scheme everywhere. My former megachurch's praise music band. We performed in front of 2,500 people, and there were always 4 to 8 singers on stage. It felt like I was on American Idol watching singers trying to outperform each other by who could sing the loudest with the most vibrato while raising their hands in the air. Oversouling is the best term I've heard for it. Let's keep it under 10 seconds per vowel, people. You could also call it overacting. It's awful on stage, whether it's acting or music. And other musicians too. I love Eddie Van Halen, but God almighty, he spawned legions of guitar players that don't know how to shut up and play your part. With pop fandom. I still like the music, but I try to avoid crazy stans. What's with them posting videos on Twitter in response to completely unrelated stories and content? I guess it's to spread awareness of their group so that the YouTube views can rise. I think it's getting worse since YouTube changed their viewing system, so mass streaming won't get as much views anymore. That's why popular groups may seem to lose views on their music videos, when in reality the amount of people watching their stuff didn't change much. It just won't get registered if you hit F5 200 times a day. But TBH, I'm not that involved in the community anymore since the amount of toxic fans gets higher every day. So maybe I'm wrong. In real life. Very long story cut short, I spent many years around people who didn't have much ambition and complained about everything not going their way. Despite not having the educational or cultural background as these people, I felt that I was part of them. I only broke free from that mentality a few months ago and still feel terribly guilty about it to the point it affects everything I do. On the internet. I have considered joining femcel groups as I am terribly unattractive and haven't had much luck with dating, but I just can't relate to a lot of their stories. Something that comes up a lot is dropping out of college and never having even a chance at a decent job due to being ugly. Being unattractive and having graduated college, found a decent job and seen many other people that have makes me think it's something else at play. A lot of them post their pics and they aren't ugly at all. A lot of the posts are them trying to out-ugly each other. I am bi and I met my ex-girl when I was 19, she helped me through my hardest times and she was around 25 at that time. My ex-girlfriend, who really is a very pleasant and soft-spoken person, introduced me to our local LGBT circle. Everyone was way too much sweet to me on my face, but the amount of hate and bullying my ex had to go through just for dating me was unbelievable. They had a very active Telegram group that consisted of 50+ users. They literally created a new group only excluding her only to bitch about her life decisions. We found out about it through a few common friends, and she really was heartbroken by the words that were used for her, only because she was dating me. These were the same people she considered as her family for 7 to 8 years straight. We are no longer together and I really hope she did not get back with that toxic group of sore haters who would hate everyone who does anything slightly opposed to their personal hardwired beliefs. Bolt's my hometown. I grew up in a small farm town of less than 1,200 people. Everyone knew everyone, which made it feel safe. When I was in high school, my dad had an affair with another woman who was also married. This continued for 2 years and my mother never found out. However, it was talk of the town. Apparently the woman's daughter was bragging about how great of a man-eater her mom was that she let it slip to her friends about my dad. They then told their parents, and some adults in the community would stumble upon her and my dad out together while my mom was at work taking my brother to sports practice. Of course, no matter how good of friends we thought we had, no one said anything. It was on my parents' anniversary where my mom found out. All because my dad tensed up at her trying to touch his hand. I was shattered when it all came to a head. When I tried to talk to someone about it, they'd look pale and then would straight up tell me they knew of it. I loathed everyone in that town so much, I left and attended college 2,000 miles away from it all. Shit, I'm so sorry. I couldn't imagine, honestly. I'm glad you got out of that town and I hope your mom is doing better. No one deserves that. She is remarried and has moved away. My brother is still in high school there and my dad is still there. The man-eater and him had a fallout and she took off. He's had at least a dozen girlfriends since then, not an exaggeration. Neither my brother or I have a strong relationship with our dad though. Thank you though. More of an online community. It was a breastfeeding support group. As a first-time mom, I really wanted to learn about baby stuff, so I joined quite a few mom groups. The excessive superiority and self-righteousness of these purist breast as best advocates was bad. They would lambaste moms for offering formula milk to the babies. Some were so harsh that it was truly hurtful for the women asking for help. Especially moms of newborns who are hormonal and sleep deprived. Found a different source of info instead and left that group. I grew up in a bad family environment and I learned to tolerate certain things as a coping mechanism, survival strategy. As an adolescent I should have been more sensitive to those qualities in people and learned to avoid them, but instead I was especially tolerant as I had learned to be, and I surrounded myself with shitty people who took advantage of me. At some point I realized my friend group was toxic and started cutting them out one at a time. It was a slow and painful process and it fucked me up to end those friendships even though they were bad for me. I had a lot of doubts, how could all my friends possibly be jerks? If I'm having conflicts with everyone I know then obviously the problem is me and not them, right? Well, turns out it was both. They were all jerks because I had chosen jerks to be friends with. In a lot of cases, my friends didn't even like each other. What a mess I made. As an adult it's a lot harder to make new friends, but I'm glad I eventually made those realizations and cut people off for my sake. I'm still lonely, especially in lockdown, but the people I do have in my life are a lot more supportive now. It turns out that when I'm not following a deeply ingrained path of self-destruction that I started on as a child, I'm actually a pretty good judge of character. Back in 2010, I was big into the Muse fandom. Had to leave because holy shit are those people awful. I still love Muse, not their last album, but I don't associate with most of the fans. Same goes for Sherlock, which is the absolute worst fandom. It is just awful. Didn't the Sherlock fandom try to solve a murder? And fail miserably? I don't even know, but it wouldn't surprise me. Most of the fandom act like they're geniuses just because they watch it. Same goes with some Rick and Morty fans. When I was in 6th grade, I tried to become one of the cool kids, and I was actually pretty much one of them for a while, but then I realized that about half of what we did was making fun of people, so I left the group at the end of the year. Like, comment and subscribe, and also press the bell notification. We are coming up with best stories for you. Stay tuned.